The reverse row sit back is my favorite compound movement for improving overall pulling strength and control on the rings because it challenges you in multiple angles. Now, there's a lot going on in this move and it can be tough to get it right. So that's why today I want to break it all down for you. All right, so let's talk about the setup first off. And I have my ring set up basically so that my back is not going to hit the ground, and especially not going to hit this bar. So basically all I'm doing is making sure and checking first of all that when I'm actually in the bottom portion here, that my back does not touch, in this case, the bar, or if you're at home, just make sure that your back is not touching the ground. So that's the first order of business. Now, the other side of it is looking at the setup in terms of where should I be underneath the rings. The main thing that I see when people are working on the reverse row is that they swing in the rings. And they're actually not set up directly below the rings. This is very important when you're working on this movement. So when you're setting up for this, first, rather than putting your feet in the position, first focus on getting your shoulders directly under the rings here. If you notice that I'm not too far back. If you start here, when you start to pull, your body's going to be at an angle. So once again, pull your butt forward, so it's going to allow you to be directly below the anchor point of your rings, which means basically directly below your rings. So your rings are going to be in a straight line, the straps are going to be in a straight line, you're going to be directly underneath them. This is our starting point for the reverse row sit back. All right, so once you have that set up down, then we're going to take a look at what's going on in terms of our hips and our hands. So first off, hands are pretty simple. All you're going to do is you're going to have so that your palms are facing each other. This is the starting point. Now we're going to take a look at the hips. You'll want to bring the hips up off the ground so you're in this starting point for the reverse row sit back, but you are actually not in the pulling prep position. That comes next. All right, I'm going to cover that in a second. So once again, you're setting yourself up underneath the rings. You're turning your palms towards each other. Your feet are shoulder width apart. You pull your hips up so that they're flat. So we're going to take a look at the pulling prep. Now, from this side angle, you're going to notice when I actually perform the pulling prep that I'm pulling my chest up while keeping my arms straight. This is the starting position. And a lot of people try and pull directly from here, but that's not what we want. First, we perform a pulling prep to set us up to initiate the actual pull. That comes next. Now it's finally time to take a look at the reverse row. That's all we're going to look at right now. So whenever we're working on the reverse row sit back, break everything down into chunks, focus on each individual part, get really good at that, and then we're going to put it all together later. You'll see. So we're in this initial first setup position, hips are up. We have this pulling prep that we started. When we perform the reverse row, what we're after is pulling our chest to the rings and touching our chest on the rings here. Slowly, slowly lowering ourselves. Now, what you're going to notice here is I want to try and keep my elbows as close to my body as possible. I'm not flaring. And this is why I have my hands facing each other, my palms facing each other. As I pull in, my arms are touching the sides of my body here. My hips are up and my chest is touching my hands when I'm performing this reverse row. None of this. Next up, all I want you to do is at the top of your reverse row, turn your hands so that they're facing you. That's it, okay? Sounds pretty simple, right? I'm here pulling prep, I do my reverse row, and I turn my hands. But I want you to notice that my elbows have not moved. They're still next to my body. And the rings are still touching my chest. And then I slowly lower myself. So you get to that top, you get to the top of that reverse row. You can work on just turning your hands and then turning your hands. Do that a couple times and then go out of the reverse row. Now this next part is where I see pretty much everyone have trouble doing. So we're going to spend a little bit of time working on this. I want to now drop my hips so that my hips are under my shoulders, but I don't want the rings to move. Let me show you what I'm talking about. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start off in this position, pulling prep, hands are facing to each other. I'm going to pull it to the top of the rings. Once I turn the rings, I'm going to focus on sitting back and then going back up. hopefully you noticed that the rings didn't move. And what I typically see is this. In that the chest falls away from the rings. As the person sits back, the rings shift, they move. And while it's not necessarily wrong, we could do it so much better. And by keeping the rings on our chest, by sitting the butt back, you're not only working on increasing your pulling strength, you're also working on your range of motion and improving the mobility in your body to be able to work on other things down the road. So once again, working on this one, turning the hands. You might find yourself only being able to go to here. That's fine. But keep pulling. Pull the rings into your chest. Elbows are close to my body. I sit back up. And then I complete the rest of that reverse row by lowering myself. I shake my arms out. I give myself a good break, and then I can perform it again. Now, one thing you can do to help you with that sit back is actually focus on doing repeats. This is a tough one, not gonna lie, but it's gonna really improve your strength and control in that position when you're working on it. Sitting back, pulling the hips up, sitting back, pulling the hips up, and repeating here without trying to move the rings. The thing is, the rings are going to move just a little bit, and that's fine. But really what we're after, again, is trying not to move those rings. After all, they're called still rings in gymnastics. I do know we're not gymnasts, okay? But the thing is we're trying to move around the rings rather than move the rings. So this is another reason why I really love the reverse row sit back, is because it's teaching this control and how to maneuver yourself in space around, in this case, an object being the rings. Work on that sit back repeat there, keeping the rings pulled close into your chest, elbows pulled tight. Again, you might not be able to get your butt all the way back, but over time, with practice, it is going to happen. And you're also going to find that your pulling strength is just going to skyrocket. Simply just holding this position is tough. This isometric type hold when you're doing it might just be the thing that you need if you're still struggling in order to get high enough above to work on muscle ups, or maybe you're working on a pull-up or something like that. This move, I found, has helped a lot of people. Now, I've already pretty much covered the entire movement, but now we are going to focus on the entity of it and putting it together and performing it in a very slow manner. I love this, okay? And I take people through this and just have them curse me because I go so slow. So go at this pace with me when I'm doing this to challenge yourself. And I think you can appreciate just the difficulty of the reverse row sit back. So here we go. So setting up under the rings, hands facing each other, hips up, pulling prep. Reverse row, slow, 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 slow. Pulling to the top of the rings. Hold. Turn the rings. Sit back. Making sure that your chest is touching the rings. Elbows are in. Slowly pull your hips up. Check to make sure that your chest is on the rings. Turn the rings. One more time, pull higher. Touch your chest to your thumbs. Keep your elbows in. Now slowly, 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 slowly lower. Slowly lower. Dead hang. Relax. That's one. If you did that with me, okay, you will find that it's pretty tough, okay? Your arms will just be like on fire. Thing is though, there's so many different things happening in there. And when you break it apart and focus on each individual part, get really good at each of those. Putting it together and performing the reverse row sit back the way that I did just now, I guarantee you it's going to improve your strength. So if you do have a set of rings, then get to work on the reverse row sit back. To me, it really doesn't matter at what level you're at. This movement and performing slow, quality, multiple repetitions of it is going to help you in improving that strength, range of motion, and control. All right, let me know what you think, and if you have any questions, let me know.